Now, it was only a matter of time before the world's oldest car maker joined the EV race, and this is the first all-electric Mercedes you can actually go and buy, the EQC. In this review, I'll be finding out if the wait has been worth it, what it's like inside, how good an EV it is, and whether you should be considering one. But before all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, switch on those notifications, and leave your comments below. So, the EQC, or to give its full name, the EQC 400 4MATIC, is Mercedes' entry into the premium electric SUV class and rivals the Jaguar I-Pace and the Audi e-tron in both size and in electric range. And there's also the small matter of taking on the car that kick-started the whole SUV electric trend, the Tesla Model X. As for the styling, well, I think it has enough futuristic design elements to mark it out as being electric, but it's not too overdone. All cars get a light bar at the back, and there's even one at the front. Basic sport model cars get lots of blue trim to ram home the point the EQC is electric. Or you can go for this AMG line trim, which, along with this 2-bar grille, you also get a different front bumper, which makes the EQC look as though it's wearing a fake moustache. Now, you are going to have to dive into the options list to get these 21-inch alloy wheels. Now, I happen to think they look quite nice, but along with those and this front LED light bar, the EQC is very easily the blingiest EV currently on sale. Now, that bling feeling carries over into the interior because take a look at these air vents. Now, in normal Mercedes you get turbine style air vents, but here you don't. Now, a turbine style air vent would be quite appropriate for a car that's supposed to be eco-friendly, isn't it? But we don't have them here. But that's not the most striking thing about them. It's the fact that they are rose gold. Very Victoria Beckham, isn't it? Not quite sure how that's going to last in a few years' time, whether we're all going to look at it in 5 years' time and think, my God, that is absolutely horrendous. But nevertheless, it's a little bit different, isn't it? And we like that. Now, other differences are this slatted design around the top of the dashboard. You can play a funny little tune on it if you so wish, which is quite nice. And also, this isn't leather that's covering the dash. It's sort of a weird material, especially on the dashboard here, because it's sort of like a material that you'd find on a wetsuit. It's very odd, very tactile, but also something we're not used to. Now, other things we are used to are the rest of the controls. Now, you get Mercedes' latest steering wheel with all of its functions, very nice indeed, with its nice little touch pads. All this area down here is a carryover from cars like the Mercedes GLC, which we're all very familiar with again. And up front, you get these two 10.25-inch screens, and it uses Mercedes' latest infotainment system, MBUX. It does work very nicely. All you have to do to summon the lady in the dashboard is say, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?
Tell me a joke."
Sorry, I'm too busy looking at the road.
Well, I'm glad somebody is. Anyway, so that's her. It does work very nicely, actually. Nice touchscreen system, very clear, very crisp. All the functions work very nicely, and the same goes for the screen in front of you as well. You also get this touchpad down here. Now, in the old Mercedes infotainment system, you'd have a scroll wheel, but here you've got a touchpad. And I mean, I prefer the wheel, to be perfectly honest with you, but it does work perfectly fine. Storage-wise, well, there's a couple of big cup holders there. On this particular trim, we've got a wireless charging pad, and there's a USB-C connector there, so you can connect your phone up. Another big cubby down there. Absolutely massive door bins. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about is the quality in here. Now, for the most part, it's absolutely great. Something you'd expect for a £60,000–70,000 SUV. But there are some other bits which are, quite frankly, a bit of a letdown, such as here. Look at all this, look. Now, I know you're not going to be doing that if you own a car like this. It all feels a bit cheap, really. And also down here, now you've got piano black here, which is fine, but it scratches so easily. Look, this car is only 1,000 miles old, and there's already lots of scratches here. I can only assume somebody with a watch, much like mine, it wasn't me, I do hasten to add, has been resting their hand on there while they've been using the touchpad and has scratched it. And I just think that is a real shame for a car that costs so much money. You get cheap quality plastics like that. And another thing that seems a bit of an afterthought is when you roll down the window, you'll notice it doesn't go all the way down. Now, presumably that's designed so that you can still put your arm up on top here, but from the outside, it just looks plain naff.
On the face of it, no EQC is poorly equipped. Entry-level sport models get multi-beam LED headlights, ambient lighting, MBUX with the 2 large screens, 19-inch alloys, active park assist with reversing camera and blind spot assist. AMG line models like our car get the sportier body kit, grille and black trim, and there's a range-topping Edition 1 model too. But the pick is the AMG line Premium with its fabulous Burmester stereo system, augmented navigation, wireless phone charging, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
Now in the back, and it's average really. Now in terms of knee room, I've got absolutely tons of it. Now I'm just over 5'10". That seat is set up in my driving position and I'm not struggling for knee space whatsoever. And I can put my feet underneath the seat in front of me and get very comfortable. Now you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to slump a little bit because headroom in this car isn't brilliant. Now the electric sunshine roof actually stops there and they've managed to scallop out a bit of room here so you've got space for your head. But if you sit upright and you are about 6 foot, your head is going to be touching the ceiling. Bit of a shame that really, but I suppose that is what happens when you design a car with a bit of a coupe-ish roofline, isn't it? Now it does feel a bit claustrophobic back here, I have to say. What with these narrow windows, the black headlining, the black interior trim, and the fact they're tinted, these windows as well, it does feel just a little bit tight back here. Now you're probably going to struggle to fit 3 people back here. That middle person isn't going to be particularly comfortable, but there's more than enough space for 2. Easily reachable eye-6 points, which is nice. Armrest here with a couple of cup holders, which is very nice indeed, and there's a little cubby there, and you can also fold this middle seat down, so you've got your very own ski hatch or something there if you need to put long items through the centre of the car. The only other thing I wanted to mention is you may notice down here there's a transmission tunnel. Bit unusual that for an electric car, isn't it? Because there is no drive shaft going through the centre of the car to connect the back wheels. Well, that's because the EQC isn't based on the bespoke electric car platform. They've used the GLC as the basis for this car. So unfortunately, you get a big transmission tunnel in the way. Now round at the back, and the EQC actually has quite a large boot for an electric car. Now you open it just by pressing the Mercedes badge, which also doubles up as the rear view camera incidentally. Once it lifts up, there we are. Like I say, it's a good size boot for this type of car. Nice square shape, nice and high, so it's quite easy to load items in. You don't have to sort of bend over too far. Under here you've got a bit of underfloor storage as well, which is very useful. Little hooks at the side as well. There's a net there for another little cubby, and you fold down the rear seats very easily by pressing the buttons there, and when they do that, when they're folded, you get a completely flat loading area.
Just like the I-Pace and the e-tron, the EQC is 4-wheel drive. There's a motor at the front and another one at the back axle, and an 80 kilowatt battery in the middle under the car's floor. You charge it up quite conventionally, no fancy charging ports here. Open the flap and there's a Type 2 or a CCS port. The EQC can charge up to speeds of 110 kilowatts, so that's 100 miles of range in 20 minutes. Not that you'll find many of these charging stations in the UK though. You'll more likely find a 50 kilowatt fast charger, and an 80% top up from one of these would take 40 minutes.
Now when you buy your EQC, Mercedes can also sell you a BP ChargeMaster 7 kilowatt home wall box charger for £854. Now it's the quickest and easiest way to charge up your car at home. I say quickest, it still takes 11 hours, but it's a lot quicker than plugging this car up to a 3-pin socket in your garage. But if you do want to do that, Mercedes will give you 2 charging cables, one that's suitable for a 3-pin socket or a Type 2 socket as well. Now, the only problem with those 2 is that they're 4 meters long, which is a little bit measly, but they are stored in the boot in this bag. Now, in some electric cars, you don't only get a rear boot, you also get a front boot, particularly so in Teslas, and Tesla call those frunks. But you don't get that in the EQC, because when you lift up the bonnet, all you've got is one great big piece of plastic, and that's covering up the front electric motor. Although curiously, that piece of plastic actually makes the EQC look as though it's got an engine. An engine in an electric car. Surely they could have come up with a better solution than that.
That's enough of the practicalities. What's the Mercedes EQC like to drive?
Now remember I said earlier on in this video that the EQC's full name is EQC 400 4MATIC. Now the 4MATIC obviously means it's four-wheel drive, but the 400 roughly relates to the amount of power this has got, because this has got 392 brake horsepower, so it's on par with the Jaguar I-Pace, and that means 0 to 62 miles an hour comes up in 5.1 seconds. And 5.1 seconds means it's equivalent to a Jaguar I-Pace, and obviously 5.1 seconds is pretty quick in the real world, isn't it? I shall now demonstrate. Very quick, honestly. Doesn't matter how many times I drive an electric car, the initial burst of acceleration always takes your breath away. A bit of a cliche there, but it really does surprise you. Now, it doesn't feel quite as quick as a Jaguar I-Pace. That initial burst of acceleration, the Jaguar really does throw you back into the seat, but there's no denying this is a quick car. It's also a car that's surprisingly good to drive. Now, I have to say, in the current crop of premium electric SUVs from the traditional manufacturers, there's only Audi, Jaguar and Mercedes. Now the Jaguar is streets ahead in terms of having a fantastic ride and handling balance, and it's a lot more fun to drive than the Audi. This EQC is a lot closer to the Audi. And there's probably a good reason for that. It's because this is based on a standard car. It uses the Mercedes GLC platform. So does the Audi e-tron. It uses a conventional Audi platform. The Jaguar has a bespoke platform. Now, as we move into the 2020s, Mercedes will launch a range of electric cars using a new bespoke electric car platform. Now, another reason why the Mercedes feels better than the Audi is the fact the Audi feels a bit cumbersome. When you take it anywhere near a twisting road, it tends to lollop around a bit. This still lollops, but not quite as badly. It tends to be a little bit sort of lighter on its feet. The steering on this car's very good as well. But the best thing about the Mercedes EQC, and it's better than the Jaguar in this respect, and the Tesla and the Audi, is how quiet this car is. Now, can you hear that? I mean, it's just, all you've got is tyre roar, because there are some big wheels on this car, but elsewhere it is so quiet. No wind whistle at all. It feels a very, very refined car. Now, when it comes to ride, now this car doesn't come with air suspension. You can't option it. On the Audi you can, same with the Jag. But really, the standard setup on this car is absolutely fine. I think the Audi probably is just a little bit better, little bit softer, but generally speaking, this is a very compliant, very comfortable car to drive. It's better than the Audi e-tron, not as good as the Jaguar I-Pace, but it is a very well-sorted, very enjoyable and likeable electric car. Now, one feature on this MBUX system, which you won't get on an equivalent Mercedes A-Class for obvious reasons, is the energy consumption shortcut button down here. Now, it tells you all kinds of information. It searches for charging stations. You can set a departure time in the morning so that the car is at the correct temperature for you. Now, there is one function here which does require a bit of explanation. Now, it's the consumption meter. Now, at the moment we're doing 1.9 miles per kilowatt. It's not very good because we're at the test track. It's not a particularly sort of usual set of driving circumstances. Now, over a week of driving, I've been getting around 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, we're going to have to start getting used to this kind of thing because this is MPG for electric cars. And the way you got to look at it is in the same way you get with MPG. The higher the number, the better it is. Now, I'm going to tell you, 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour isn't brilliant. It's average at the moment because we're in the infancy of these types of cars, but a Kia e-Niro can easily do 4 miles, and it can get us up to as much as 5 actually in the times that I've driven one. whereas this is doing 2.7. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that Mercedes claims this car has got a maximum range of 259 miles. But if you're getting 2.7 miles per kilowatt out of this car, you've only been seeing 216 miles. Not so good, is it? And it's the same situation with the Jaguar I-Pace. Jaguar claim around 290 miles in that, and yet you're going to get around 212 because that car only really averages around 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour. It's food for thought because a lot of these cars are being sold on the amount of maximum range you can get out of them. And yet in the real world, you don't see anywhere close to that. Now, just like any normal Mercedes, you've got dynamic select in this car. So you can choose from a number of driving modes. So there's Sport, Comfort, which is probably what you'll drive around mostly in, and Eco, and there's another mode called Maximum Range. I mean, it's pretty obvious what that mode is. This car will set itself up to deliver the most amount of range it possibly can, and it will be scouting the road and making sure that you can get to your destination with the most amount of range left. It's quite clever actually, but like I say, you'll probably keep this car in either Comfort or Eco modes. Now, this car has 4MATIC, which is Mercedes speak for four-wheel drive. Now, for the vast majority of the time, the power is being sent to the front motor, so it's front wheel drive, and only a little bit is sent to the back wheels when it needs it, which is quite interesting actually, because in the Audi e-tron it's the other way round. I mean, it doesn't really change the way this car drives, but it's just an interesting quirk with the way different manufacturers are using the electric motors, trying to set their cars up to drive differently, because let's face it, this is going to be an ever increasing problem as more of us drive electric cars. How can you make your car feel different to another car with, let's face it, basically the same hardware?
It's a nice car, is the EQC. It's clearly a Mercedes first and an electric car second, and that's very appealing. It'll probably excite current Mercedes owners more than those who are captivated by the thought of electric car ownership. But it is a luxurious, comfortable electric car that is typically Mercedes. It's certainly one you should be considering. Click the video on the left for our premium electric cars group test and on the right for our EV playlist. Press the Car Buy logo to subscribe to the channel, and as ever, thanks for watching.